Welcome back to Miniature Mashup, everybody. Today, we're doing something very different. It's on YouTube, and I'm watching videos of something called power carving, where people are taking their dremel tools, and they're just carving up wood and making really fine, intricately detailed sculptures. Now, I'm not going to do that. This is my first attempt, but today I am going to take some of these trees of heaven, and I'm going to try to make some kind of primitive fetish poles. Wooden poles are sort of used to signify spirits and things like that, but this is also sort of a video gamey thing, like Castlevania's fireball shooting skulls, or Diablo has a sort of little fetish spirits that run around, and the sort of monster slash trap is not very well represented in Dungeons and Dragons, so I've also created some stats for them, and we'll talk about that a little later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to carve out a little circular area on this piece of tree of heaven. And I'm just going to define where I'm going to draw in my little skull. Go around the space, I give the roundness at the top, and then I come in with the engraving tool, and I use that to define the eyes. And then from there, I just sort of have a process of removing wood at a very fast speed. With my large engraving tool, of course, I'm going to come down to smaller engraving tools later. Attachments that are specifically for working with wood, I don't have any on hand. I am ordering some off of Wish, so they'll be here in 2024, and then I'm going to make a lot more videos of this kind. Just working with the drill and engraving tool, you can see I'm doing a pretty good job. And by the way, you guys are watching my very first attempt at power carving at all, so this isn't going to knock anybody's socks off. If you're an experienced power carver and you're doing tabletop stuff, I bet you can produce something a lot more convincing than what I'm doing here. But as you can see, I'm taking the natural wood, and I'm just sort of carving it up. And by the way, this is before this wood has been stabilized. It might make more sense, and I'll have to try it, to stabilize the wood first. And the stabilization, simply a process of drying out the wood. And what I ended up doing with these after I carved them was putting them into a toaster oven for a couple hours. First, I put them in a microwave. A bunch of steam came out, so I knew they were wet. Put them in the toaster oven for about 5 hours at 250 degrees. Put them back in the microwave to see if any more steam came out. Nothing did. In fact, I got a little smoke instead. So I feel like they're pretty dry now. They feel extremely dry. And this is trees of heaven, so they're not really lumber, is my understanding. They've got very soft centers. They're very porous, and I think it wouldn't be much to get the moisture out of these. Not, say, like piece of oak or something. Now what I've done in both cases here, I've made 2 of these, is I've just carved 3 skulls facing one direction, and I stabilize them, and then I bring them inside and I just stain them with a little sepia tone. Then I go inside the skull eye sockets and the nasal cavity, and I'm just going in there with a little bit of craft paint, and it's just black, just to sort of define those areas a little bit. And then I'm going to give that all the skull areas a dry brushing with a paint that's lemonade, which is just a very, very pale yellow color. Very low value, to say a very desaturated yellow. And you can see my new dry brush is in fact a dollar store makeup brush. And I'm just putting a little bit of the white on some of these. This is a new type of craft for me, so I'm still experimenting. I'm going to pick out the eyes with a little bit of white paint. Make them look a little bit haunted. We don't need that solid black. I want it to look like maybe there's a spirit infesting this fetish pole. Now, of course, we are going to need a base. In this case, I have a couple of small can lids. And I'm just going to hammer a nail through them and use a little bit of E6000 to fix our fetish pole onto the base. And for those of you who go nuts every time I use PVA glue to flock the base, I'm actually going to use a little bit of the E6000 all over the can lid. And then I'm going to dip it into some craft sand, so we'll have a much stronger glue than usual holding the flock on. I know that some of you, the PVA on the metal makes you crazy. I've never had an issue with it coming up, but I'm here to please. So into the E6000, then into the craft glue. And then once I've got that base coat, I may or may not add a little PVA over that and a little extra glue. I'm not sure. Now, to enhance this so it's not so plain, I've got a bunch of skull beads, and these are from the dollar store Halloween. They put the little skull necklaces out. I like to break them up, take those skulls, And I'm just going around the base with them. Of course, we're going to paint those up as well, try to make them match. I'm also going to take some of my Party City skeletons. I'm going to cut the skulls off of those, paint those up, and stick a couple of those into the totem pole proper, so it looks like they're adorned with ogre skulls, half-orc skulls, what have you. I've got two here. The one with the bigger skull at the top actually worked a little bit of a knot in the wood, so it's got sort of a natural oversized skull look. I think they both came out pretty good. I've actually statted them out. I've got it on Drive-Thru-RPG, and they're just called shamanic fetish poles, and they are basically possessed poles. They've got spirits that have been imbued into them, sort of evil spirits that have a variety of abilities. In fact, I've statted out 7 different kinds of these monsters. It's a nice way to take those trash mobs like orcs, goblins, and gnolls and spice them up. If you've got a low-level campaign and it involves lots of battles with orcs, it's really good to have some way of mixing it up. And these are essentially harassers, but they're also kind of tough because, you know, they are big wooden structures that have a lot of hit points, so they can kind of keep those harassment spells going for a while. They're not soft like a lot of spellcasters are. I'm going to leave a link to the Drive-Thru-RPG book for that. It's a PDF. It's 4 pages. Again, 7 stat blocks. It's got some background and some fluff and some text. And only 99 cents. You'll really be helping the channel out if you pick this up, guys. I'd really appreciate it. So that's it this week. I probably will have some more Gasland stuff coming for you because I shot a whole bunch of it. But I did want to mix it up and do something a little different today. So everybody have a happy holiday, and we'll see you soon on Miniature Mashup.